All right, I'm super excited for this conversation because, Todd, you've been doing franchising for a long time at various elements of the franchise business, which gives you, I'm sure, a unique perspective where you are today. So even though we could probably talk about it for a significant amount of time, when I say, what's your franchise story, how would you answer that?
Well, it's diverse and it's varied, and it's my story is that I've committed my career to it. Nick, 35 plus years in franchising, and I would say I wouldn't be here today without some amazing mentors along the way. But as you said, I've had an opportunity to be involved in every aspect of franchising. And I've always wanted to be very, very good at all different things, not just one thing in franchising. And so all throughout my career, I've been able to work with wonderful organizations, great brands, and most importantly, help put people in business and help them succeed. And I think that's absolutely the beauty of franchising.
So if I were writing out a blueprint for how to become a CEO or president of a franchise brand, I would absolutely show yours as a great case study. I don't know that I would have said stay 27 years at one job, which call that like you could be the most loyal person in franchising. I don't know that I've ever seen that. But I think your blueprint, you go from ops to merchandising to franchise development to marketing, understanding all these different elements, which positions you well for where you are today. Talk about, like, let's fast forward to the current business. How do you get involved in this, and what is your pathway inside of the company that you're at today?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, it all starts someplace. And as you mentioned, 27 years with one company, which is Winmark Corporation. What I learned there, and first of all, learning startup at that organization was critical, because when I entered the company, there were just a handful of us. We were a small management team with 2 locations and 1 brand. Ended up franchising and building this business to hundreds of locations in the Play It Again Sports brand, and then scaled the retail concept to 4 other businesses, which many people know about: Plato's Closet and Style Encore and Musical Round and Once Upon a Child. That built a foundation of operational excellence that I learned in that organization, and they still do it today. But then fast forwarding to other parts of my career, which I was able to get into more development and then more leadership. And where it led me was a private equity company called Proprietors Capital Holdings in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We own approximately 17 different companies in a variety of industries. And franchising is a big part of what this group has done. They were looking for leadership to expand the depth of their executive bench and brought me in to really help run some of their companies. And so I've been in a few different positions here at different brands, but ultimately as president of Pedal Pub, it allows me to take, again, my background and experience, find the right people to put in the organization that are really smart, talented individuals, and build this national brand to what it is today, which is the largest party bike business in the world. And doing that by day after day, we're running the company, building support teams, helping our franchisees grow, and continuing to find and select the right franchisees to put in this business.
I see Stopover, whether it's still active or not due to the state of the company. I'm just curious. Stopover with pros of becoming area developer, and so you're stepping in as a franchisee as well. Is that still active, or is that was that a stopover to learn another aspect of franchising?
That was a great experience, and I've been involved in multiple area developments. Which, for an audience, what that means is that you essentially become a sub-franchisor, or you buy the licensing rights to franchise a brand in a particular market area, which is exactly what I did with Pros. Built the largest region in the country with the brand, and wonderful, phenomenal brand. Unfortunately, that franchisor is no longer operating today. We still have locations operating independently, but it was a great exercise and experience in, again, putting people in business and being extremely hands-on in a process of doing everything from end to end as the franchisor.
One of my friends and clients, Jason Markowitz, was also involved in the business. And I'm sure like the lessons learned from that too, because you said obviously no longer a franchisor. Lots of lessons learned where absolutely the right category, maybe not the right infrastructure. And when I'm hearing what you put together with the pedal pub, you said infrastructure and right leadership. Like I think you probably learned some of the lessons from that you're now cross applying into the business today.
I agree completely. I think that you can grow too fast. I think that there are situations where there's great concepts. We all have great ideas, put them into practice, but ultimately to succeed as a franchisor, you need a lot of good things going for you, not just a good idea. And that was a remarkable idea and still is to this day, but you need to have the right people. You need to have the right capital. You need to have the right patience. You need to have certain things that are going your way just to grow. And it's no trivial matter to get to just 10, 20, 30 locations in franchising. And that brand did it. But to really scale up, you need a really solid infrastructure to do it.
Yeah, and therefore, call it a badge of honor. You learn more, and then you cross apply it over here. I see similarities if I'm trying to make a comparison to some of the experiential side that you're doing with Pedal Pub, back to even what Winmark was able to do. Very hyper focused on a category, didn't really divert much far away from what your expertise was in. It seems like you're doing very similar in what could be a collection of companies or one, depending on the direction that you go in. But it seems you're very dialed into saying, let's do something really, really well. Is that accurate when it comes to Pedal Pub?
It is accurate. So what really attracted me to this, Nick, was the experience economy. And there may be no more important trend in America today in Canada than the experiential business. And so Pedal Pub was our first foray into the experience economy. That is, people that would rather spend money on experiences than goods. And so this is being driven by the millennial generation. The experience economy is booming. It's like $12 billion right now. And so we wanted to be a part of this. And so when you look at Pedal Pub, largest business like it in the world, 60 plus locations operating in North America and growing. But we also felt like, what other experiences can we add to the platform that makes sense? And so you're going to see very quickly in the future a live game show challenge concept, live game show that is going to be in the marketplace. We're operating one right now. We're incubating that concept, and we're going to be expanding on that. We have dipped our toe into the escape room business. We have gotten into some really wild businesses like a concept called Zombie Rampage, which is a paintball business. All of these concept ideas center around the idea of experience. And so, yeah, we're super hyper focused on what it is. And as a PE company, we're always looking at new ideas too, and new concepts to add to the platform and pair these businesses even together if we can.
How many current locations do you have with Pedal Pub?
We have 60 locations operating, another 12 in development.
Are those done by, are the franchisees becoming multi-unit, or is it more single unit franchise owners?
Yeah, good question. Because of the nature of our territory strategy, unlike some brands where you can put, 3 to 5 mile radiuses around protected territories, the business we're in there is more city driven than it is, I would say, almost street and market driven. So very, very few multi-unit owners. We're beginning to see a little bit of it out west in California, where we're going to have a multiple unit owner north of LA. But primarily it's single market.
Okay. Are you doing an item 19?
We do have an item 19, yes. We've done it for the last couple of years, absolutely.
How does that relate back to the cost to get in?
It relates well. What we do in our item 19 is we really list out 2 really important factors that people are curious about. One of them is revenue. And in our business, we give you a breakdown in a tier of revenue per number of years in business. Because like most businesses, people want to know how the business is going to scale from year 1 to year 5 and so forth. And we do that in there. We also connect the dots in the item 19 to the number of tours we do annually. And the number of tours we do in our entire network. We do over 50,000 tours a year at Pedal Pub today, with 500,000 people that ride our bikes every single year. So when you add up those numbers and you look at our investment in franchising, still a relatively modest investment for a franchise that ranges, as you can see, from 117 to 270, or anywhere in between, depending on the market and which one we go into.
So, out of curiosity, on regulations, I mean, do you get beyond regulations because private trolleys or buses have already put in the work there that this falls under that category, or do you have to work with the community when you've decided we want to open there? Is there a lot of red tape when it comes to figuring out where you can actually grow with the brand?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the number one challenges we have and opportunities from a launch standpoint. So yeah, first and foremost, we work with every franchise owner to make sure that we can get permitted and market approval and road ready with our bikes. We do a lot of that work up front, so that when we're targeting specific markets, we understand if there's red flags getting in. It doesn't mean we can't get open. It just means it's going to take more work.
Yeah.
And what we make sure of is that we have great relationships with the city, with business leaders. Our franchisees are on the ground working with those folks, and we're doing it together as a team. At the end of the day, the city wants to know who the operator and owner is in the city. I mean, sure, they don't mind hearing from us at the corporate level, but really it all works in the community. And so it's a combination, Nick, of both. Some markets we go into, we call it a green light market, where we can go in and the city is asking for us to come in. They're ready for us. Others have never heard about us yet. And so there's an education process. One way or the other, we typically always find success to get open.
Have the trolley or private limousine companies that are already doing this for weddings, in that it's an event based, you're renting out a vehicle, you're transporting, and most of the time there is alcohol involved. Have they looked at this and said, how do we become a franchisee and how do we diversify our portfolio, given that we already know who our customer base is?
We're beginning to see more and more people that are in the experience economy, the tour operation business. And now, Nick, what we're seeing is a lot of interest from restaurant, bar owner, and brew pub owners to pair this business with their existing business because of what you just said. Common clientele, common operating hours, same market, a lot of crossover back and forth. And so they're leveraging that. And we just awarded 2 locations out in the LA market with a new franchisee that owns 2 breweries. And so this is a trend that we're seeing now. So yes, that's a big target for us.
Love it. I would imagine, I mean, like Play It Again Sports. I think one of the magics of Play It Again Sports was the name. Like the name was so spectacular that it would be hard. Like Nick's used sports equipment is just not going to do the same thing. Do you feel that because you're pushing first to market, it actually creates more of a point of differentiation that would eliminate someone going direct to a manufacturer and saying, I'm going to do this on my own? Is that part of the magic here? Is that first to market, we're figuring out regulations, we know how to get our vehicles ordered fast enough to get back on the road? Like, how do you stand out to make sure that a competitor doesn't pop up here or can't get steam? Like, again, against Play It Again Sports would be very challenging.
Yeah, no, Play It Again Sports is a great example. I mean, I lived that business for a long, long time, and we got a big jump on the marketplace. And by the time people figured it out, and you're into the hundreds of locations, and you've got system and process in place and branding, it's all really, really critical. You don't always have to be first, as long as you're good at what you do. But in our case, being first with Pedal Pub, we've been operating for 17 years. We started the industry. So as such, one of the benefits you realize with it is you become sort of the brand of the industry. So when somebody sees a tour party bike going down the road, they go, hey, that's a Pedal Pub. So we've carved out a brand name with our brand name for the industry. But getting that lead is important. It means that you've got systems in place, you've got people in place, you've got marketing. We have both national, regional, and local marketing with our national ad funds. We have operations teams that are in the field working, great development teams. And so you get all these things and you get momentum and scale. And it does, to a certain extent, maybe hold back some of the competition. But we still have a lot of really great competitors in the marketplace. But so far, so good.
Well, I think you win. I mean, what you just said, the brand name. If you take Pedal Pub as a brand name versus escape room, like the reality, escape room is the equivalent of Kleenex. There are many variations on it, but they're all still called escape room, whether they're a different brand or not. So there could be points of differentiation in the experience, but escape room is what it's called. And here you've owned basically the name of what this is. So that actually probably helps you that even if a competitor does open up, it's a pedal pub.
Yeah, the SEO is great because you can have people look. We're gonna end up at the top of most searches. People are going to search our competitors, and we're going to come up first in a lot of cases, and that's just good marketing. And it's also a power of the brand, and that can't be done without really good owners and operators in the field, and really good marketing teams, and frankly, just longevity, being around long enough. We've got 200 plus bikes on the road right now, so every one of those bikes is a moving billboard. Every one of those bikes is advertising our presence in a marketplace, and so it's pretty rare when we speak with somebody that is interested in a franchise that hasn't seen our product on the road. And that, again, just lends to the brand power of the name. And look, we didn't make up the name. The founders did that, but it's a great name.
I'm gonna put you on the spot with a question. So I apologize in advance for this. But you've been in franchising a long time. So what's one thing that disappoints you that hasn't made its way through franchising from the beginning of your career to today? And what's one thing that you're like, all right, we've come a long way in franchising on this as well? Something positive and negative that you've thought of throughout your career?
Yeah, not me personally, but just the franchise space in general. Wow, that's a really great question, Nick. What are we still working on? I think we've come a long ways in a lot of key areas. I would say this, franchising dominates every single industry. Doesn't matter what industry it is. There's a franchise opening every 8 minutes in America. And there still sometimes tends to be a negativity towards franchising, whether it's government, the stuff that we're dealing with right now in some states, with employee issues. But it's just sometimes a lack of knowledge and awareness about what franchising really means from a positive standpoint. Sometimes people look at franchising and say, they look at it in a negative light, unfortunately. And maybe they look at locations that closed. Maybe they look at brands that didn't make it, whatever the case may be. And so I think we haven't got there yet in terms of the positive impact that franchising makes in our world, in terms of employment, what it does for our economy, what it does for tax base. It does so much for the entrepreneur and the people in the company. So I think that's something that we just still need more education. The IFA, by the way, is doing a great job with that, and is always battling that. I think what I'm really just kind of gratified to see in franchising is that there's so many different brands and industries that have popped up in the marketplace today. And I think franchising is an amazing way to scale a business idea. And you can scale business a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be franchising. But I love the fact that so many people have gone to franchising, and that's great, and opened the door to business ownership. Because ultimately, franchising to me is really that on-ramp to business ownership for a lot of people that normally either couldn't figure out how to open a business on their own, get started the right way. And it's been gratifying to see for 30 plus years, because that wasn't the case maybe 35, 30 years ago. Today, it's very much the case. So that's how I think about it.
I think it's a great answer. I mean, my take is, I think I've been doing this since 2005, so not as long as you, but I've been in franchise. I fell into it accidentally. I think what disappoints me is franchisors are still doing franchise sales, and you've been at a few that it's about the deal. I think we're coming along to those that develop franchisees and award units. But ultimately, we have so many human beings that are willing to invest their life savings for a business that they have little to no control over. And so I like, and I can see it on yours, and it comes back to leadership. Like the first thing, if I'm doing my due diligence on a business, I want to say, who's the people behind this? Who's going to support me? What's going to happen when shit hits the fan? What's the institutional knowledge? I could see that in yours. Like you've been through all the ups and downs. You've seen 2001, you've seen 2008, you've seen 2020. Like if I'm like, hey, how do I navigate this, Todd? I know who to call, and I think there's tremendous value on that. And I agree with you on the general sense of what is franchising. You could still ask someone, what's your perception? And they don't understand that there's a small business owner behind that business. Now, I think early on, McDonald's did a fantastic job when they called the franchisee an owner operator. Mm-hmm. And then they vacated that. They stopped talking about people and they started talking about brand. And they're the king of the castle. And so when the king of the castle has changed the narrative, then to everybody else, they don't understand that Todd or Nick has put their life savings behind this business. So I think there's progress being made, but I agree with everything that you said. I think it's deeply critical that we continue to make movement. And I think it's deeply critical that we continue to really hyper in on franchisee success, because they're the ones that are investing in this so that a brand has ability to scale.
Yeah, I would say in follow up to that, you're right. I think, we assume that everybody in franchising is great and they all know what they're doing. And some companies are young and emerging. Some companies have been around a long time and do a wonderful job. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's really about, not just building a brand, but building a successful ecosystem with franchisee and franchisor, and having these relationships that really make sense so that you can grow a brand, but ultimately help people be successful. You mentioned, the 2001, 2009, 10, the recession. I saw a lot of people that didn't make it. Yeah. And it was hard. And then you come out of that, and not everybody makes it in every business. And, you want everybody to make it. You want everybody to succeed and make their dreams come true. So where I've landed in my career is I think about every day when we come into this business is, how do we support our franchisees for success and profitability? And it's not a cliche and a tagline for us. It's the real thing. And so we build our organization around people that understand that. That's the backbone of the organization. And if it isn't for a franchisor and it's really just about sales, that's a hard path, because you got to sell a lot of units. So I've seen all of that. But yeah, great comment.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you. I like saying, what do you want the buyer to know about you that is a ghost around the web? But I would imagine the first start of the answer, which I don't know that this comes across in your website currently, is what you just said. We're deeply invested in the success of our franchisees, and here is how we've done it through foundation, through being properly capitalized franchisor, which there are many that are not. So they have to rely on the franchise fee to keep the lights on. And so some of the things you just said are deeply important to it. But is there anything else that you want to add to the ghost candidate that's out there that hasn't given you their name on why now?
Yeah, I think it's not overly complicated. I think when you look at somebody that's going to make a choice in owning a franchise, I think first and foremost, we're both trying to find the right fit. And we know what our ideal candidate profile looks like. And we look at that, and that's our guide. And look, we both get a vote at the end of the day, the franchisee candidate and us, about who's going to go into business. But you're right. We're going to talk a lot about and make sure that our messaging comes through loud and clear about, number one, our history, our track record, the strength of our brand in our business. You're selling yourself. And so you've got to be able to talk about who's behind the company. So you got to talk about your expertise, your experience levels, how you're going to navigate the good times and bad, because you're going to have both. It's good to be a company that has capital and therefore can innovate. And that's important. And we've done it a long time, not just a little bit of time. And that we're going to be patient, and we're going to make sure that not only put the right people in business in the right markets, but we are also going to support them. And so, Nick, we walk them through every step of the support process, through their whole discovery with us. And for Pedal Pub, It's great because it's a lifestyle brand. It's a fun brand. It's a rare brand that the consumer, every single time they're a part of it, is smiling and having a great time. What we say, Nick, is, we're selling memories. We're selling social interaction. That's not that hard to do. People love it. And so that's our message, to whether it's candidates or frankly, whether it's to the end user, which is so important to us.
I love that. I mean, I've always said brands don't sell brands, people do. Most brands sell brands in franchising. And what I just heard, I heard you use the word we, heard the word support. Like you are dialed into the franchisee. And I would imagine that's because of the depth of your background. Most don't have that when it comes to growing a business. It's much more about, are you financially qualified and ready to buy or not? And I think that's a tremendous statement. And so to a buyer, if you're looking to buy the person, you're buying you're buying the team that you've put in place, and you're trusting that the widget that you've chose to put your energy behind is a viable business opportunity. I think you've done a tremendous job at building this out.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's another episode of Meet the Zor. Todd, thanks for sharing your story. I look forward to seeing where it goes. I will be a fan watching from the sidelines. So for Todd, I'm Nick.
Well, thank you, Nick.
Zor. Take care,
everybody. Spending time with you. Take care. See ya. Bye-bye.